line journey through Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si. Over the past 4 sessions, we have reflected deeply on the beauty of creation, the ecological crisis confronting our common home, the human roots of this crisis, and the vision of an integral ecology that calls us to see the interconnectedness of all life. Today, we move to Chapter 5, Lines of Approach and Action. With that brief introduction, I now invite Sister Miri to extend a warm welcome to today's resource person, Sister M. Sunita, and all the participants, and to lead us in the opening prayer as we prepare our hearts and minds for this fifth session of Laudato Si. And I request all the participants to mute their microphones. I request all participants to mute. Thank you. Sister Mary.
A very warm welcome to all of you joining us this evening, our dear teachers, sisters, friends, and students from various walks of life. Though we come from different roles and backgrounds, we are, as one family, united in our care for our common home. Let us begin by quiet our hearts for a short prayer. Loving Creator, you have placed us as caretakers of this earth, our common home. As we gather this evening to reflect on the paths ahead, the lines of approach and action, open our minds to see clearly, open our hearts to feel deeply, and open our hands to act with courage. Help us hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, and guide us toward integral solutions rooted in justice, simplicity, and love. May this time together bear fruit in dialogue, in commitment, and in hope. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Mary, for your warm words of welcome and for leading us in a meaningful prayer, preparing our hearts and minds for today's session. I now invite Sister Lily to introduce our esteemed resource person for this evening.
Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege to introduce our speaker for today, Sister Sunita CJ, from the Allahabad province. Sister Sunita has been a member of the Congregation of Jesus since 1992. She holds a Bachelor of Social Work and a Bachelor of Laws from 2014 to 2021. She served as the JPIC coordinator of the Allahabad province. In March 2025, she was appointed JPIC coordinator of the Congregation of Jesus. In this role, she provides awareness, encouraging collaboration, and inspiring action in accordance with the mission and values of the congregation. We are truly honored to have you with us this evening, dear Sister Sunita. Thank you for accepting our invitation to share your knowledge, experience, and insights with us. May I now invite everyone to join in me extending a warm and hearty welcome to Sister Sunita CJ.
Thank you, Sister Lily, for that thoughtful introduction. And now it is my privilege to invite our esteemed resource person to lead us in today's online session on Chapter 5, Lines of Approach and Action from Laudato Si. Sister Sunita, we are grateful for your presence and look forward to your insights. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Mabel, and thank you, Lily, for that introduction. As we begin this fifth chapter of Laudato Si, I would like to begin with a creation story that I came across. All of us are aware of the creation story that is mentioned. There are two versions, and this is a third version. So when I was preparing, I came across this creation story, and it goes very well with the fifth chapter, that is lines of approach and action. So I start with that story. What have we done? In the beginning was the earth, and it was beautiful. And human beings lived upon the earth, and they said, let us build skyscrapers and expressways. And they covered the earth with steel and concrete. And they said, it is good. On the second day, humanity looked upon the clear blue waters of the earth and said, let us dump our sewage and waste into the waters. And they did. The waters became dark and murky. And they said, it is good. On the third day, humanity gazed at the forests on the earth. They were tall and green. And the human beings said, let us cut the trees and build things for ourselves. And they did. And the forests grew thin. And they said, it is good. On the fourth day, humanity saw the animals grazing in the fields and playing in the sun. And they said, let us trap the animals for money and shoot them for sport. And they did. And the animals became scarce. And they said, it is good. On the sixth day, humanity saw the many kinds of people on the earth, different races, colors, and creed. And they feared and said, let us make all kinds of lethal weapons and missiles in case misunderstandings arise. And they did, and missile sites and bomb factories checkered the landscape. And they said, it is good. On the seventh day, humanity rested, and the earth was quiet and deathly still. For humanity was no more, and it was good. With this creation story, let us
Excuse me, Sister Sunita, excuse me.
yes,
Are you using your PowerPoint presentation?
yeah, I'm going to begin. I'm
Oh,
going to
okay.
start
I was
sharing the
just
screen.
wondering whether you were
Yeah,
presenting.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
sure. I didn't put that part in the PowerPoint. That's why.
Thank you, sister.
Now I'm going to start sharing the screen. Okay. Can you see the screen?
No,
Can
sister. No, sister.
no.
We can see the screen, sister.
You can see?
Yes, we can see desktop.
Yes, I can see
Oh,
the
wait, let
desktop.
me-
Yeah.
Now? Now
Yes.
can you see?
We can see, sister.
Okay. We start with
Laudato Si, chapter 5. Yes, sister.
5 lines of approach and action. That is the fifth chapter. The first few slides I have put it into as nutshell, and after that we will look into little more elaborately. One minute. Okay. Something is going wrong with my PowerPoint. Okay. The nutshell, the first part is we need always to keep in mind and heart that our planet is a homeland and that humanity is one people with living in a common home. Says Laudato Si 164. We need a global perspective, one world with a common plan, developing sustainable ways of developing its potential. Enforceable international agreements and global regulatory norms are needed. It is a matter of redefining our notion of progress, a technological and economic development which does not leave in its wake a better world and an integrally higher quality of life cannot be considered progress. It cannot be all about profit. We must have minds and hearts that are concerned about the environment, deeply disturbed by the plight of the most vulnerable in our society, and filled with a desire to help those who are struggling to find new and better opportunities in life. We need far-sighted, honest politicians and leaders, men and women of integrity. The final section of chapter 5 is religious dialogue with science, reminds us to live in a way that is inspired by our faith, to be open to God's grace, and look to our compass, which always points us to love, sacrifice, justice, peace, and service. These are the 5 things mentioned in the last bit of the chapter. Now, we look at the whole chapter in an elaborate way. In chapter 5, after having presented his overview of the reality of the planet, which we already had in the 4 sessions previous to this, and profoundly human causes of environmental degradation, Pope Francis offers his thoughts on the more important paths we might follow to help us escape the spiral of self-destruction which currently engulfs us. His approach is built on a series of dialogues that must be carried out. And these dialogues are clearly explained in the whole chapter. The first dialogue is on the environment in the international community. Second one, dialogue for new national and local policies. The next one is dialogue and transparency in decision making. Fourth one, politics and economy in dialogues for human fulfillment. And the last one is religions in dialogue with science. Now let us look at all these 5 dialogues one by one. The first one is dialogue on the environment in the international community. There is a growing conviction that a planet is a homeland, is one people living in a common home, which ought to lead us to conceive of a common project for the world and for humanity. Despite some advances, there continues to be a lack of global awareness of the gravity of the situation. The Pope speaks of the need for common and differentiated responsibilities and for the radical changes demanded by present circumstances. He calls for enforceable international agreements. Global regulatory norms are needed to impose obligations and prevent unacceptable actions. There needs to be agreement on systems of governance for the whole range of so-called global commons. The next one is dialogue for new national and local policies. It is not enough to focus on the international issues, but winners and losers on the national and local levels must also be identified. Governments should not be concerned primarily with immediate results, driven by consumerist sectors of the population and concentrating on short-term growth, but rather long-term goals that guarantee the common good. They should pass laws that promote respect for the environment and the interests of the small producers and which preserve local ecosystems. However, the Pope is very realistic about the possibility for these long-term goals and notes that public pressure has to be exerted in order to bring about decisive political action. The next dialogue is dialogue and transparency in decision making. In this section, the Pope deals with the problem of corruption, which can be addressed effectively with transparent and shared political processes. Every environmental impact assessment must be carried out in a way that is interdisciplinary, transparent, and free of all economic or political pressure. The Pope calls for dialogue between all of the interested stakeholders, especially the local population, and offers a series of questions that must be raised in order to guarantee integral development. The questions are: what will it accomplish? Why? Where? When? How? For whom? What are the risks? What are the costs? Who will pay those costs and how? He also highlights the need to use the precautionary principle. The Pope notes that in the case of strong evidence that irreversible damage that may result due to an activity, a project should be halted or modified even in the absence of indisputable proof. Here the burden of proof is effectively reversed, since in such cases, objective and conclusive demonstrations will have to be brought forward to demonstrate that the proposed activity will not cause serious harm to the environment or those who inhabit it. The next dialogue is between politics and economy. Politics must not be subject to the economy, nor should be the economy subject to the dictates of an efficiency-driven paradigm of technocracy. Politics and economics must be at the service of life, especially human life, and environmental protection cannot be assured solely on the basis of financial calculations of costs and benefits and market forces. We cannot hope that those who are obsessed with profit will take into account concern for nature in their calculations. Limitless growth is not a panacea for all our problems. Rather, we need to be more creative and invest sustainable development. The time has come to accept decreased growth in some parts of the world in order to provide resources for other places to experience healthy growth. The Pope reinforces the call for increased responsibility at all levels, citing the need for subsidiarity, and ends the section by challenging politics to work at restoring its own credibility by promoting a clear and a transparent approach to current problems, thus limiting the space where organized crime can function. The last dialogue is between religion and science. Life cannot be totally explained by the empirical sciences, and religious classics foster reflection on ultimate meaning and are able to open new horizons. If we lose sight of the great motivations which make it possible for us to live in harmony and values such as sacrifice and goodness, no technical solution will be able to fill the void. Believers must live in a way consonant with their faith and do not contradict it by their actions. The majority of people living on our planet profess to be believers. This should spur religions to dialogue among themselves for the sake of protecting nature, defending the poor, and building networks of dialogue and fraternity. The Pope calls dialogue among the various sciences and various ecological movements. The gravity of the environmental crisis demands that we all look to the common good, promoting true dialogue that will lead to concrete results. Having looked at these 5 dialogues, now let us look at a few questions for reflection. The first question is, deforestation, land grabbing, climate change, fossil fuels, are these mere headlines for us, or are they vital issues raised by this document to which we must find concrete responses? Do you agree with the Pope that public pressure is needed to bring about change in these important areas? The second question, what is your opinion about global agreement on use of the oceans? How much do you know about issues related to the sources taken from the oceans? Is it just to think about a supranational organism to govern the use of ocean resources? What needs to be done about this issue, and where do we need to start? Aware of the contribution of civil society to environmental questions, are aware of positive policy results obtained in our country due to the work of the organizations of civil society. The next question is, do you think it is necessary to stay out of politics so as not to dirty your hands? Or are you convinced that we need to participate in political life so that we might help orient its choices? How might we picture politics and economics that are truly dedicated to human fullness and to promoting environmental justice? The fifth question, why do many people see religion and science as opposed to one another? Is this an attitude inherited from the environment? How have religion and science contributed to the attitude that they are irreconcilable? Is this true? And the last question for our reflection is, why should I work for a world that is more just, where the poor have a voice and are able to find their own dignity, where they are able to acquire the tools and knowledge necessary to escape their condition? Let us pause for a while and just think about what is our responsibility and what can we do. These questions of reflections, let us go through a few practical things that we can do in our life, in our daily life. I have taken this from different chapters, and it is concerning what we use daily. We are connected to the climate, we are connected to the water, air, food, and everything. So I have prepared a few slides to share with you because it is a lines of approach and action. And this year from the JPIC office also we have taken Laudato Si seventh goal, that is community engagement and participatory action. So we are all invited to participate in the action that is to repair the damage that is done to the climate and to the poor. So let us look at these things. Everything is connected, says Laudato Si 91. We must urgently renew our relationship with our living planet. While the scale of this challenge can seem daunting, the good news is that the answers are already at hand. It is only up to us to put them into action. The climate is a common good to all and meant for all, says Laudato Si 23. The fossil fuel economy is the main cause of global warming. What needs to change? With swift action to rapidly eliminate greenhouse emissions, we can limit temperature rise and prevent its most dangerous outcome. Nothing less than a complete change in our economies and societies is required. We must halt deforestation, change how we consume food and how we farm our land, produce power without fossil fuels through massive shifts to clean energy. The next one is our living planet. Because all creatures are connected, each must be cherished with love and respect. Laudato Si 42. What needs to change? With immediate action to conserve and restore ecosystems, we can reverse the damage to nature. We need to protect and restore habitats on land and sea. The land rights of local and indigenous peoples who have deep and diverse knowledge on the wise use of natural resources must be strengthened. We need to change how we produce and consume food. Restorative agricultural practices can both provide a haven for nature and help tackle climate change. Eating less meat and dairy and cutting food waste will reduce pressure on ecosystems. And tackling the climate crisis will also prevent further loss of biodiversity. Next, we think of our water. We have a moral obligation to ensure everyone has access to clean water to meet their fundamental human needs. Yet, increasing number of people lack reliable supplies of water, especially the poor. We can ensure access to safe drinking water, sanitation for all, and sustainable use of water in agriculture and industry by treating it as a precious resource and conserving and managing it in a fair and sustainable way. What needs to change? Water must be treated as a scarce and precious resource. We need to use less of it and use it more efficiently. Education on conserving water is more crucial for helping people change the way they use it. Wasteful irrigation must be tackled. We must reduce pollution in rivers, groundwater, and seas, and cut overuse of chemical fertilizers and pesticides in agriculture. We can save resources by recycling rainwater and wastewater, and by protecting forests, we can also protect watersheds and rivers. And because global warming is a cause of water shortages, these issues need to be tackled together. Now let us look at our air. Our very bodies are made up of her elements. We breathe her air and we receive life and refreshment from her waters. Clean air is everyone's birthright. Yet, globally, 9 out of 10 people breathe air that contains high levels of pollutants. At the same time, air pollution contributes to global warming and harms the natural world, and its worst effects are suffered by the poor, especially in cities. Many of the actions we can take to cut air pollution would not only improve health, but also bring benefits for our climate, biodiversity, and quality of life. What needs to change? Technologies are available to reduce emissions from industry, and we need to change our systems for transport, energy, and waste management. In cities, better public transport and walking and cycling networks, as well as switching to electric engines, all cut air pollution from vehicles. Shifts away from fossil fuels to solar, wind, and water power are crucial. Open burning of waste can be avoided by reducing, separating, and recycling it. And people need access to affordable and clean cooked stoves and renewable sources of energy to provide heat and light in their homes. Our food. There is a great variety of small-scale food production systems which feed the greater part of the world's peoples. Laudato Si 129. Intensive agriculture has reshaped the planet. The growing demand for food in the second half of the last century led to massive changes in agricultural practices around the world. This new model of industrial agriculture was largely driven by mechanization, new breeds of crop, and synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. Initially, these methods brought large increases in yields for some, but in many ways the system is now unsustainable. Intensive agriculture has had widespread and devastating environmental and social impacts. Many unique foods and crop varieties have been lost, and with them, bonds of culture in which food plays a vital role. Agriculture in crisis, people and planet at risk. Acute hunger is rising in more than 50 countries, while a third of all food goes to waste. Intensive agriculture largely relies on fossil fuels. It has turned rich forests into farmland and is responsible for around 1/3 of green gas emissions. As intensive farming methods erode and deplete fertile soil and surrounding biodiversity, they undermine the ability for future generations to grow adequate food. As local and indigenous farmers are displaced, we are fast losing the deep reserves of skill and knowledge they hold. What needs to change? A hotter world will harm crop yields and ecosystems, so we must act on climate change. Avoiding food waste, ease pressure on land and water, and feed more people. Choosing diets with less dairy and meat would also reduce pressure on land while cutting green gas emissions. In only a few years, ecological farming methods can restore degraded land, provide space for nature, protect soils, and draw down carbon. Small farms still produce the bulk of world's food, and this diversity is vital. Local and indigenous producers hold unique knowledge that is key to the future of agriculture. We live in a world of both hunger and food waste. Can we resolve to stop wasting food? Are we willing to make sacrifices to change our diet so it is more planet friendly? What needs to change in how we produce and distribute food? What can we do to help bring about these changes? Can we start composting and buy more from local producers? Our consumption, a world of exasperated consumption, is at the same time a world which mistreats life in all its forms. By 2050, we would need 3 planets to support current lifestyles. Since 1970, we have been consuming more than the planet can sustain. What's more, 80% of the world's resources are used by only 20% of the population. Patterns of production and consumption in the industrialized world strip the earth of its natural riches such as forests, fish, minerals, and water. The wasteful ways we produce and consume goods are also highly polluting and harm the health of people and the living world while contributing to global warming. Each year, around 12 million tons of plastic enter our oceans. Plastic waste is an especially serious symptom of overconsumption. Microplastic particles find their way into our food, water, and even bloodstreams. What needs to change? We need to move beyond consume and throw away systems towards circular approaches that work within ecological limits. This means reusing, recycling, and sharing materials and products. Governments must do more to make companies accountable for the impacts of their activities and supply chains. They also need to help consumers make sustainable choices, for example, through taxation and requirements for clearer labeling on goods. Households and firms should also take responsibility for how they dispose of their waste. Do we feel caught up in a culture of compulsive consumerism? What changes could we make in our lifestyle to better care for others and creation? Every product and service has both an ecological footprint. By choosing our purchases carefully and responsibly, we can protect both people and planet. How can we use citizens' power to spur governments and the private sector to reduce ecological impacts and move towards zero waste? Our shared future. The environment and social justice cannot be separated. The overuse of natural resources by industrialized nations means that poorer countries have paid a heavy price for the development of the richer world. Climate change is a clear example. Richer countries are most responsible for it, but it is the poor and marginalized who are suffering the worst impacts. Biodiversity and agriculture are also tied to justice and equality. As industry and intensive agriculture have advanced, the land rights of peoples who have been long been stewards of our most biodiverse environment, small-scale farmers and indigenous peoples have often been ignored. Climate impacts such as sea level rise, extreme weather, and lower crop yields will affect the poor the most. By 2050, more than 140 million people in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Southeast Asia could be forced to migrate because of the climate crisis. Everyone has the right to clean air and water, yet the poorest in rapidly growing cities are very often deprived of both and are most exposed to pollution. And young people will have to live with the consequences of choices made today, so they need a greater role in decision making now. Pope Francis urges us to hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Let us pray and act for justice on all fronts for both people and planet. How can we help people, especially the young, face a challenging future with confidence, competence, and hope? How can we ensure that marginalized groups have a strong voice? The climate emergency is an opportunity for us to come together as one. How can we help those affected by ecological crisis? What programs or policies can address long-standing injustice? Many things have to change course, but it is we human beings, above all, who need to change. Laudato Si 202. We do not stand separate from the planet. We share with other life. We are intimately related to it and so are responsible for its care. The truth must be recognized in order to meet the challenges of this critical point in history. What is at stake is nothing less than our children's rights to a safe climate, clean water and air, sufficient food, physical security, and wonders of planet rich with life. We cannot overcome the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss, nor overcome pollution, resource degradation, poverty, and injustice without transforming outmoded patterns of behavior, culture, and economics. We must move beyond an exploitative relationship to our planet towards one based on stewardship and care. While such a transformation has already begun, the gravity of the situation demands greater action. People and communities must join together to ensure that those who make decisions and hold the most responsibility and power understand that action on these issues is a priority for the people they serve and that they are held accountable. Here I finish the presentation, and the last one is I have taken the prayer at the end of the Laudato Si encyclical, and I request all of you to join in this prayer. Let us truly pray, sincerely pray, and that God may touch us and we may move into action, whatever we can do, what is in our power. So please join me in saying this prayer. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of all your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as siblings, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Sunita. Before we conclude, I would now like to open the floor for interaction. If anyone has a question, a reflection, or an insight arising from today's session, you are most welcome to share it. Your thoughts and experiences will enrich our collective understanding and deepen our reflection on the message of Laudato Si. May I now invite participants who wish to contribute to kindly unmute themselves or use the chat box to share their questions or reflections.
Today's session made me aware how important it is to give each one's contribution, my contribution in our daily life towards um, towards the creation by becoming eco-friendly. There are many ways that each one of us can contribute to it, and also it made me feel the feelings of those poor who are deprived of even clean water and clean air. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Sunita.
Dear sisters and friends, kindly unmute yourself, and if you would like to share anything, you can share with the group. Okay, I think we are still reflecting. So as we come to the close of this enriching online session, it is my pleasant privilege to propose the vote of thanks. On behalf of everyone gathered here, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed resource person, Sister M. Sunita, for leading us through Chapter 5 of Laudato Si, Lines of Approach and Action. Thank you for helping us understand that addressing the ecological crisis requires more than concern. It calls for dialogue, cooperation, shared responsibility, and courageous actions. Your reflections reminded us that governments, institutions, communities, and each one of us have a vital role to play in protecting our common home. You have helped us to see that caring for our common home begins with the simple choices we make each day. We are especially grateful for the way you emphasized that genuine change begins with a willingness to listen, to collaborate across differences, and to place the common good above individual interests. These insights challenge us to become active participants in building a future rooted in justice, sustainability, and care for all creation. Thank you, Sister Sunita. Our sincere thanks to Sister Mary for leading us in prayer and setting a reflective tone for this gathering, and to Sister Lily for introducing our resource person so graciously. I would also like to express our sincere appreciation to Adriana for designing the flyer and helping us to promote today's session. Your creativity and support are truly appreciated. A heartfelt thanks also goes to Sister Mary for generating the meeting link and graciously hosting today's online session. I also extend my appreciation to all the participants for your faithful presence, attentive listening, and commitment to journeying together through Laudato Si. As we conclude today's session, may we carry with us Pope Francis's invitation to move from dialogue to decisive action, recognizing that every effort made in the spirit of love, justice, and responsibility contributes to the healing of our common home. Thank you all once again. Wishing everyone a blessed evening, and I look forward to meeting you at our next last session next month. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.